get over there, tune in, go to the group description. You can find a link, or you can just hang out with us live while we are on air. So we got quite a few things to get to today, and some of the stuff we may get to. I may have to save some stuff for next week, depending on how things go. But nonetheless, you know how we start out: news, updates, scores from yesterday. First thing I want to do, in continuation with Women's History Month, okay, today, by chance, is International Women's Day. So shout out to all the women, especially all the black women that are doing their thing in and about our community and all around the world. So, to give homage and respect to the ladies for this month, for the second week in a row, I'm going to give you some things like I mentioned last week. I'm going to give you some ladies' names, some African American sisters who are in the sports world, either athletes and or on the business side. So, one today is Taylor Rooks, prominent reporter on Bleacher Report, several TV shows, so she's on the journalism side in that. Longtime sideline reporter Lisa Salters, give respects to her, and another sideline reporter, world-known Pam Oliver, for today. Those are your three for today. Again, next week we will have some more for you, like we said, in conclusion and celebrating Women's History Month. So we got some scores for you. We know March Madness is vastly approaching. So I've got some scores. I'm only going to give you the scores of the ranked teams that played yesterday. Memphis falls to number 9, Houston 67-64. Number 25, Wisconsin falls to number 5, Iowa 77-73. Texas Tech, number 18, falls to number 3, Baylor 88-73. Number 2, Michigan takes a hit and falls to Michigan State 64-70. Number 15, Texas defeats TCU 76-64. In spring training baseball yesterday, the Phillies were blanked by the Yankees 4-0. In the National Hockey League, the Sabres fall to the Islanders 5-2. The Lightning outlast the Blackhawks 6-3. The Panthers fall to the Hurricanes 4-2. The Devils outlast the Bruins 1-0. Capitals defeat the Flyers 3-1. The Penguins beat the Rangers 5-1. The Predators just get by the Stars 4-3. And the Senators also, in a shootout, get by the Flames 4-3 as well. So, with that being said, folks, I've got some news and some updates for you. The Washington football team is expected to part ways with Alex Smith. Don't really know what that's about. After the year they had, I think they played their best football when he was on the field. So don't really know what's going on with that situation, but there's a crazy situation going on there. So we'll see what happens and where he lands, if he lands anywhere else. Michigan, again, like I just mentioned to you, had leaped into the number 2 spot over the weekend, and they win the Big Ten title. Got to give shout outs to Juwan Howard, a member of the original Fab Five. Definitely doing a great job there in Michigan at his alma mater. But his coaching pedigree, his tutelage was great, and it was NBA styled, or whatever you want to call it. But he is very astute in that position. Hence, he's doing such a great job there. Brandon Graham is working on a contract restructure to stay with the Eagles. He stated in an article, in a report, that he would love to stay here. This is where it all started for him. He's got some nice ties to here. He said he also even went as far as saying that once he retires, he wants to do something in this city or in this area because he loves it so much and it was so great to him in his career.
Hey team, how you doing?
The Eagles restructured Darius Slay's contract to save $9 million on the salary cap. They also proposed an onside kick alternative rule change again, which I don't think is going to happen, but they're just trying it just because they can. Smith and Vlasov, WBO light heavyweight title has been rescheduled for April the 10th, which will be aired on ESPN.
Okay.
The NCAA issues Arizona, the University of Arizona basketball team, 5 level 1 charges, violations charges. That is. We'll talk a little bit about that later on down the line if we get to it. Okay. As you know, it's been all over the internet all weekend. Besides the fact that they're in some contact tracing, Joel Embiid had announced that he would donate his All-Star Game proceeds to 2 homeless shelters here within the city in this area. Hence the team acknowledging his great effort has honored to match. So there will be $200,000 going to these homeless facilities and shelters and things of that nature. March Madness is coming up. The selection show is next Sunday, March 14th, and the NBA trade deadline is still approaching. So things are still active. We're going to talk a little bit about that involving concern with the Sixers. But the deadline for the NBA trade deadline is March the 25th. The cutoff is 3 p.m. Okay. So, with that being said, we are going to jump right in to what's most prominent and what we are most at the top of the line. We all know yesterday was the NBA All-Star Game. Yeah. I think it was like the 70th All-Star Game.
Watched those game day?
To be had. And one of the things that surprised me initially was, before the game even started, was the simple fact that we all heard the news. Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons did not participate in that because they apparently came in contact with a barber in Atlanta that tested positive for COVID-19. So, in my small discussions with family yesterday and talking about this entire situation, one of the things I brought up was that I understand it was All-Star Weekend. You guys had a chance to get together and look good and whatnot. But here's the thing. You had plenty of time to take care of that. You could have done that while you were home, or you could have just waited until you got back. I mean, it was only one day, and everybody had to leave last night. They couldn't stay over if they were playing or whatever. They couldn't stay over. They had to leave out last night. So you could have made do without having that shiny sharp haircut for one day. Or like I said, you could have had it done with someone you were familiar with, as opposed to going to a whole entire different state, knowing the situation with COVID within that state, and trying to find a barber. And just ironically, when I talked to people yesterday, it was like, but both of them know. I said, you got to understand, and it's somewhat ironic, if you will, they're teammates. They're there together. So they're going to hang out together. It's like they got a little break from work. They're in the All-Star Game. It's time for them to let their hair down, so to speak, and relax a little bit. So they're going to hang together more than they would with anyone else. You know, it's a great thing they didn't really hang with anyone else, because no one else on their team or in that brotherhood was also quarantined. So, you know, I talked about this from the very beginning last year when we first got put into this pandemic, and people were initially somewhat taking it as a joke. And I kept telling you, if it stretches along the lines of where it has stretched to, from the common folk to what we like to call the rich, the upper echelon, or the superstars or the stars, it affects everybody. And we see how the effect it had on sports last year. You see how it's still having an effect on sports right now. And we definitely see the effects that it's happened in general. So you can't take it for a joke. If you don't know now, then there's something wrong with you. But again, those guys being
naive.
I'm not gonna say naive. And like I said, I look at it as one of those things, like I mentioned. They had a break from work. and we all know how grueling and tiring the NBA schedule is. So they had a little break from work. They were in Atlanta, and they figured they came together pretty much from the same place.
Right.
Same practices, and they've been around each other.
Right.
So it's kind of only right that they would hang together.
Right.
Other than the fact that they're teammates and
the
they're friends off the court as well. So they're naturally going to be together.
Exactly.
But again, you can't even really use the word naive. Well, you could in being aware of what went on in that state throughout the whole time that we've been in this pandemic.
It's high.
But
COVID,
just looking at the both sides of the thing, it's one of those things where, like I mentioned, they were off of work. They went together. They hang out together.
Right.
So naturally, when they got down there, they're going to be together because they felt more comfortable with being with each other.
Right.
Okay. But nonetheless, you don't know what was going on down there.
Right.
So, and I'm not even 100% sure because the details that have been put out are very, very slim.
Right.
Almost to just the basics. So we don't even know exactly how this whole situation played out. We just got the information that they came in contact with a barber who tested positive, and then they were quarantined and ultimately did not participate in yesterday's All-Star game. So, unfortunately, Sixers fans, it's something that we're going to have to deal with.
Do you think the fans got cheated a little bit? I mean, they're two big stars.
If you looked at it before the game when you heard the report,
like, wow,
you could think that you might get cheated a little bit.
Right.
But the way the game played out, I don't think.
Embiid supposed to start, right?
I don't think they got cheated out in that instance because the All-Star game was actually pretty good.
Oh, it was. It was.
For me, it was better than I thought it was going to be, and I say that in a way to say that as a Sixers fan, you look forward to seeing your guys in with your guys, coaching in the situation.
Right.
You know, as a fan, as a Sixers fan, it was a moment that you were looking for.
Right.
With all that intertwined in it, and you just didn't get the full effect of that moment.
Right.
So for me, that was like the one blemish, if you will. The play of the All-Star game was slightly different this year. There was some defense played.
A little bit.
Very early though. There was defense played very early in this game. And if I had to make an interpretation or give you my thoughts on why that played out that way, I think a lot of the reason was because of what they played for.
True.
And we're definitely going to talk about that. But I'm going to go over what went down yesterday. They lumped everything into one day. The evening started with the skills competition and the three-point contest. Then you had the All-Star game, then the slam dunk contest was at the All-Star at halftime. Now, I'm going to start with the halftime with the dunk contest.
It's good, pretty good.
I wasn't thoroughly impressed.
Michelle, good morning.
And I haven't been thoroughly impressed with the dunk contest since they brought it back.
Yeah.
Because of so many changes that have been added to it and the way that they've adjusted it, where these guys are getting 3 attempts at a dunk, you know. And that's just my bias from me being brought up on the basketball that I was brought up on and what I saw in dunk contests prior.
Right.
I think with the misses, and it's kind of on the lines of what Shaq was saying, you know, I'm not rewarding you for a missed attempt, things of that nature that he was saying. But it makes it a little bit more difficult to judge when you have these guys have these multiple attempts. Because, like Kenny Smith was somewhat alluding to, takes away from the luster of the dunk contest. And you know, he was asked at one point, you know, if he had a plan, if he had a routine that he had planned out. And, you know, he said he didn't really have a plan, but he said if he realized, if he reached a certain point in the dunk competition, he had dunks prepared for those particular situations if he got there. He also went on to say where these guys now get these attempts and they get these opportunities to have missed attempts, where they end up changing their game plan mid-flow, and it takes away from their actual activity or their actual possibility of getting the highest ranking score. Right. And I agree with that, because you try a dunk, and we see it the last few years that they put the dunk contest back. Right. Guys will try a dunk and they'll miss it, and then they'll miss it a second time, and then it happened last night. Right. Then they have to just completely change it, and then by the time you saw what they were attempting, and you kind of envision what they were attempting, when they just give you, as Kenny Smith would say, and I quote, an in-game dunk, so to speak, as far as being in the dunk contest.
It's normal.
It's like, okay.
I've seen that before.
You know, it's like, okay, all right, yeah.
Try better, do something else.
You didn't really impress me. I mean, now, you did that dunk that you tried twice and missed, I would have been impressed. But now, you just have to make a dunk to get points, and it's like,
Dick, can I try real quick? It happened last night. I forgot the young man that had the afro. I think he won, whatever. They have the guy that jumped over his father and other.
Yeah,
whatever. Yeah, it was a dunk. He just a normal dunk, like you said. He got 9 nines for it. Like, really?
Yeah, it's crazy.
And then the other guy did a dunk, and they gave him like 8 9s and 10s.
Yeah, it's really crazy how that thing.
These judges, I don't know. Spud wasn't. I don't know what they was looking.
How it played out this year. Like I said, the judges. It makes it harder on the judges as well. Right. Because again, like I said, a lot of times, or more times than not, they have members of dunk contests or that were arguably good dunkers throughout their career, have them as judges.
Yeah, makes sense.
And like you said, now from what they were doing, and then you had these guys that miss dunks. Like I said, you get that vision with the first attempt, and then the second attempt, and then it's like it's kind of like what Shaq alluded to when he's like, I can't give you 10 or 9 for this regular dunk.
You missed 2 dunks.
You know, now you had to resort to a regular dunk, so you changed your game plan.
And then
you gave me, like Kenny Smith again said, a game dunk. Yeah. Something that you would do in a game, which is not really what you're looking for in a dunk contest.
It's called creativity.
So it's really crazy on how that goes out. The skills challenge winner was another big Domantas Sabonis of the Indiana Pacers. Steph Curry wins the 3-point contest, and like we just mentioned, Anthony Simons wins the slam dunk contest. The final score from yesterday's All-Star game, Team KD falls to Team LeBron, 170 to 150.
Points, man.
And you know, it's a lot of points, but that's what's expected. And
that's the most ever did.
In that kind of
that's probably the most
All-Star game.
Maybe
there was also some history made yesterday for Team LeBron. Chris Paul, in 31 minutes, bottled up 16 assists. Yeah, which pushed him in front of Magic Johnson
my favorite
for most assists in an All-Star game. And going into the game, I think he only needed 4 to pass him, maybe 5
I don't like
to pass him, and he basically blew that out of the water.
That's my man.
And ended up with 16.
Magic's
the game, if you didn't pay attention and you were wondering why the second quarter the score went back to 0, it's that hybrid format that they started. They're playing each quarter, and each team that wins a quarter would have money donated to a charity. Right. So they started each quarter. The first 3 were 3 12-minute quarters, but they all began with a 0-0 score. The fourth quarter comes in, and there's no time limit, but there's a target score generated from the team that's in the lead through the 3 quarters, plus 24 in honor of Kobe Bryant.
Right.
Hence, that was the target score of 170. So, watching the game, when you heard that, you might have thought, wow, it's going to be a long fourth quarter.
Right.
Because both of these teams now have to try and get to 170.
170, yeah.
Didn't turn out that way. We saw some amazing, deep, super deep three-pointers from arguably right now the best shooter, three-point shooter in the game, in the NBA, in the history of the NBA, Steph Curry.
Yeah.
But you also had Dame Lillard, who actually won the game on a half-court three.
He's amazing.
And it's amazing how the game has changed. Like we always talk about how the game has changed, and a lot of people wanted you to shoot the three-pointers now.
Exactly.
But the magnitude and the distance that those guys are shooting these shots, and when you watch them, it's not the typical half-court throw. It's a legit shot, at least for those two guys.
Yeah.
It's deep out.
It's like a layup.
Yeah, so it's a definite shot for them. There's no gimmick in it. It's just stuff that they are talented enough to be able to accomplish on the court. Giannis wins the MVP. Also, I think setting an NBA record for 4 consecutive field goals. He was 16 of 16 in 19 minutes for a total of 35 points. And again, he ends up with the MVP. And bottom line, the All-Star game yesterday was a great event after they had talks about not having the event at all. Barring the small hiccup with our Sixers, Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, I think everything went smooth. Okay. I can't say really smooth because, like I said, I still think that they condensed too many things into one day. So it went through good, pretty good. You know, they got through it, and they will say arguably that it was a success for them, and I can say that as well. It was a success for what they did in confining everything into that one particular day.
How you doing?
The bigger issue with this year's All-Star game, the charities that were being played for. Team LeBron was playing for the Thurgood Marshall Foundation, and Team Kevin Durant was playing for
Black
United Negro College Fund. So as it played out, these teams win each quarter. Team LeBron won every quarter except for the fourth quarter. So that is $450,000 just on the game alone that was donated to the Thurgood Marshall Foundation. And then because they ended up winning, they got another, I believe, $300,000 to go. So that's $650,000.
Good.
Over $500,000 donated. Okay. Also, AT&T 5G donated $5,000 for every dunk throughout the entire game.
There you go.
They were at
that's a lot of money.
about, I think, maybe 100,000
probably more than that
before halftime. I think even close to the end of the first quarter. So there was a lot of money donated to a great cause. I also have to give shout outs and kudos to Chris Paul for his activity in taking classes at Winston-Salem State and moving and experiencing the things that he did. And you saw it, he talked about going to Harvard, and there was a business class at Harvard, and he eventually spoke to that professor and got that class moved to North Carolina A&T once he found out that that particular type of business class was not offered in HBCUs. So it's a great effort, great feat by the NBA for doing that. And I just hope that it doesn't stop there. I hope it continues. And as long as Chris Paul is in and around and the president of the NBA Players Association, I think some things will continue. Like I said, he started another thing with bringing that class to North Carolina A&T. So I think he's going to be very, very instrumental in doing a lot more with HBCUs and attempting to involve the NBA as much as he can. So, unfortunately, again, the Sixers were the #1 team in the East. Their coach, Team Durant, they did not win the game, but it was great to see Philadelphia represented. We would have loved to see the players play as well.
Right.
But like I mentioned, that there's something that, as a Sixers fan and as Sixers fans, we are definitely going to have to deal with in the next coming weeks. So we don't really know the particulars. We do know that the two guys were quarantined yesterday. So if we just look at the basics involving this COVID issues, you could easily say that they would have to be quarantined for 2 weeks, which means that they would miss possibly 6 games out of the schedule. So being a true fan, being a member of the media, and being real, our #1 seed is going to take a hit. Because the reports are out, and they were out yesterday, that as most of us already knew, Blake Griffin is going to sign with the Brooklyn Nets. He may help them on the defense or something, but he's lost a lot. Again, it's not my type of basketball. It's gotten to the point, like I said, the game has changed, but I accept and I understand the way it's changed as far as free agency and things of that nature. So guys now, at this stage in the career that he's at, are basically going to go looking to win a championship. You know, sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But now you can arguably say that they definitely have a super team. Now, depending on his health,
injuries, stay healthy.
Will have a big stake in how much he can honestly give them.
10 points a night?
It's hard to say, because those guys that are playing with him are younger, in better shape. Their running style, their scoring style may not suit him as well as he thinks it will.
What are you, like 33?
I'm not sure how old he is, but that style may not suit him because of the injuries. I mean, he was in LA, Live City, when that all started, but it's a different type now, and he's been injured. He was recently injured and missed time this season already. So I don't know how well that fit is going to be. We're just going to have to wait until the season resumes and see how that works out. But again, as a Sixers fan, I accept it right now, and I know that our #1 standing is going to take a hit. I don't see us falling any lower than 4, if we even get to 4, because when you think about what's been done on this team and all the trade rumors that we'll talk about in a second, you would think that with the coaching, the Sixers could hold on, because when you think about just the team in general, the next 6 games are arguably somewhat favorable for the Sixers. Their next game is the 11th, returning back at Chicago, and they have a back-to-back that go to the 12th. They're at Washington, who is improving right now. Then they come back home for 4 games against the Spurs, the Knicks, the Bucks, which is going to be key, and then the Kings.
The NBA starts back Wednesday?
So it's going to be a challenge, a different challenge than what you expected for this hard half of the season, because in all actuality, you're thinking, all right, you got your 2 All-Stars, they'll go play in the All-Star game, yada, 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 they'll come back, Alexis, thanks for tuning in. He'll come back, and then we'll kind of pick up where we left off. Maybe the rest to do them a little bit of good.
Right.
You know, of course, Doc would have been monitoring his player that was on his team and one was scheduled to be on the other team.
Right.
So the one that he had, I think he coached KD's squad, so he had Joel Embiid.
Right.
So I'm sure he would have had his coaching staff monitoring those minutes. He probably would have said something to the other side about Ben's minutes, considering where they are in the standings or whatever. But that's a moot point now because neither one of those guys played. And again, depending on what symptoms they have, if they even have any symptoms or even test positive, with them coming back, being out for 2 weeks, it's going to take them a little bit to get back into the flow as we know them to be in the flow. But again, like I said, looking at this next 6 game schedule, you look at it initially and you think shouldn't be too bad. You would look at it and you would probably say the actual toughest game that means the most is the March 17th game against the Bucks. And I mean, all of these games mean something, but that's one of the most important, or if not the most important game on this 6 game stretch. Because they're chasing the Sixers. And it's going to be tough for them to go through these 6 games without your 2 stars. You still have Tobias, but now you have to figure out what you have already, depending on or barring a trade and what you bring in from that trade, how you maneuver and how you get some wins out of these games, because you're going to have to win. You can ill afford at this point. Nobody can ill afford to lose 6 of all 6 of these games. I don't think they're going to lose all 6 of these games, but I'm just hypothetically speaking. That thought process could be in your mind where some of these games that really shouldn't be tough games are going to be tough games now because of what you're missing. And like I said, that's barring what happens in this time frame, if there's a trade and what you bring in from the trade. Because this schedule goes from March 11th to March 20th. So there could be a trade had in the midst of this. In essence, they still would have 5 more days to do something afterwards if not favorable. This 6 game schedule is not favorable for them. So there's a lot to be had in this situation. And Sixers fans, like I said, unfortunately, it's where we are. And as fans, we have to bear through it. We have to work with it and bear through it, if you will. Because as fans, there's really nothing that we can do except maybe get into the building and cheer this team on, especially with 4 of these 6 games being at home. And we know how we play at home. And they're going to let fans in, I'm sure, and somewhere in this stretch.
Michelle Godowski said, is Embiid and Simmons out for 2 weeks?
They're arguably going to be out for 2 weeks.
Yeah, and then on call, he chimed in. He said that what he said? What's the name? Shake Milton. They got to step up.
Shake has been stepping up anyway. But in this stretch, Shake is probably going to have to be a starter now because of what you're missing from your 2 stars. So he's arguably, definitely going to take one of those spots as a starter.
And Maxi Hamba.
It's going to be tough. It's probably going to have to come into matchups. Like I said, it's a lot that's going to go into this.
Tabar's going to do this.
Let alone just the matchups of what you got left on the bench and on the team. But also, like I said, it's still within that time frame of the trade and the trade deadline. So like I said, something could be done in this time frame or something could not be done in this time frame. Real quick, shout out to Delaware Blue Coach, my guy Joseph P. Richmond, the ambassador of basketball for your Delaware Blue Coach. Very good friend, great partner, great all-around dude. So shout out to you and the guys down there. Shout outs also to Matt Murphy, who's down there in the bubble, another good guy. The Blue Coats are approaching the postseason down there in the bubble. They ended up being the number 4 seed. And they actually play tonight at 8:15 p.m. against the Austin Spurs, who were the number 5 seed.
Right.
So, most recent trade rumors involving the Sixers has been talk about Zach LaVine. And I've had people via social media, like I said, I post all this stuff for all of my listeners and all our followers so they can stay in tune of what's going on. And I've had a few people ask me, how did I feel about that? The difficult part in giving a true feeling is we don't know what the cost is. And this is what I kept saying to people as they asked me. I said, I like the move, but I also would go in and say I like it, but it depends on the cost.
Right.
At this point right now, with what's going on with the Sixers, there are going to be a lot of people who are now going to say, oh, let's jump and do it now. Let's do it.
Right.
There's no need to get anxious and chomp at the bit and make a trade just because it's not like these two guys are injured and they're not going to miss a month.
Right.
They're going to miss 2 weeks.
That's it.
6 games.
Yeah.
And for where they are right now, it kind of does mean a lot.
Right.
Because these are your 2 stars. These are the cornerstones of your organization.
Right.
So it does mean a lot. But in my opinion, it still doesn't mean I got to push that panic button just yet. Because like I said, 2 weeks, they'll be back. And the season is going to go until May. So they will have time to make up some of this, depending on what happens in this 6-game stretch.
Right.
And again, possibly,
what's up, Tom?
After they return, there could be more help as far as another scorer or scorers added to the mix.
Exactly.
So they will have time to make this up. It's just a matter of getting them through these 6 games with these 2 guys missing for these 2 weeks, these 14 days. But the Zach LaVine thing has been brewing. I even mentioned a few weeks back where the Sixers played the Chicago Bulls, and it was a leaked report that Joel Embiid was talking to Zach LaVine in the tunnel and kind of was overheard or allegedly overheard mentioning to Zach, talk to your agent, we can use you here in Philadelphia. Okay, so maybe something is going on. And also people, everything that I've seen involving this rumor is saying that Daryl Morey is looking for a multiple team deal. Right. So it's not going to be just a Zach LaVine for this person. Mighty Mouse, what's good, my bro? Good, glad you are tuned in. So I think something is going to happen, but again, you have to keep your eyes open or have a clear, have open thoughts about it, because he's asking for multiple teams. So that means the Sixers could arguably get something else. If I'm not mistaken, I do have it here. The Sixers have some draft capital that can be used in any of these trades with other teams or whatever. So just running down their draft capital,
what they have?
They have a 2021 first round pick and a second from Houston, which is in the closest upcoming draft. In 2022, they have a first. In 23, they have a first, their own second, and another second round pick, which could end up being the best between the Nets, the Hawks, and the Hornets. All of these are involving from prior trades and prior deals. And in 2024, they have a first, their own second, and a second from Miami.
Right.
So they have some capital. And there's also been talk, and I forget who the player was, that they might have been able to get just for a second round pick.
Right.
So here's possibilities. Other names that are, that was with PJ Tucker.
Yeah.
And you know, PJ Tucker is another piece that could be had
from Houston, right?
By two ways. He could either get bought out and picked up off of waivers, or they're saying, or they were saying, yo, Ball is tuned in. What's good, guy?
What's going on, Ball?
They're also saying that he could be had for a second round pick. And as I just read to you, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 second round picks that they could take their choice of if they wanted to.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of chatter and a lot of executives that are speculating that before the end of the trade, or by the end of the trade deadline,
right,
that PJ Tucker will end up with the Philadelphia 76ers. So we'll see how that happens. And
yeah, he had 3.
it would be really good.
Would you like
because he brings that toughness
right
to you that you will need going into the playoffs. And he can shoot that corner.
Can he play D?
Yeah, he plays D. So, you know, I think that would be a good addition.
Yeah, he hit that.
Other names were Mr. Bellica, the stretch 4 that people talk about that can shoot the 3
right,
from the Sacramento Kings. There's also talk of Lauri Markkanen from the Chicago Bulls as well. It's another reason why I'm thinking that all the reports are saying Daryl Morey is trying to get other teams involved to make something happen.
Right.
And my guy, like I mentioned, Ersan Ilyasova. Chuck, thanks for tuning in, bro. Ersan Ilyasova, who is not on an NBA roster, who can be had for cheap and can do a lot of things like we mentioned last week that the Sixers need, or not last week, the week before that when Baldy was here, that can do a lot of things that the Sixers are actually in need of from that stretch 4 position right now.
Right.
And then there's George Hill, the veteran point guard, that's a little bit cheaper, a little bit younger than Kyle Lowry. And then there's still a possibility of and chatter surrounding Kyle Lowry. So there
options.
are some things that could happen that could help. And if it could happen within this 6-game stretch would be great. But if not, then that gives us more help after the fact to make up whatever happens,
right,
if there's something that needed to be made up within that 6-game stretch. So with that being said, folks, it's it's going to be a tough stretch. It's going to be a tough 2 weeks. But with the new coaching staff who understand what they have on the roster, and again, like I said, the relationship between Morey and Doc Rivers, I think something is going to happen, and I think it's going to happen in a way that both parties agree on, that can really legitimately improve the Sixers team and make them and help them have a push, a long push for the playoffs. Baldy chimed in. He says he would take Tuck. He brings the toughness. Like I said, I agree.
Yeah.
So 12 noon, Monday, March the 8th. We're going to take a quick break.
Yeah.
When we come back, we got some other stories we're going to talk about. We're going to talk a little bit about Shannon Sharp's comments involved around Mike Tomlin. We're going to talk about the overtime program that is coming, that is apparently Overtime Elite Pro Basketball, which is going to allow high school players to earn up to 6 figures to play. And
6 figures. Ooh.
Wow. So yeah, we're going to talk about that. You are tuned in to Sports Rap Heat 100 Radio. We will see you on the other side in just a few minutes.
Take a quick break. Enjoy the music. Thanks for everybody for chiming in. Michelle,